So this is we call a special session of to our RightTool users, so we can showcase a new feature that we're releasing for version 1.021, and this is the very first version that this thing is public. It's a beta edition. We're going to rely on your feedback during this webinar. So you, first of all, tell us what you think, where this could be useful, what we're missing. All that stuff is going to be useful. And secondly, as you start using it, there's going to be glitches, there's going to be issues. You want to report this to us. Okay. All right. So the problem that we're solving here, and it is possible that the target for this is going to be a lot of nonprofits, so a lot of companies that run P&L by class or P&L by location, eventually P&L by customer job. And sometimes there are transactions that are sitting either on the not specified column, which means that those transactions were missing a class on the transaction, or they're sitting in some sort of like plug, temporary admin overhead type of class where you were putting everything in there because the transaction itself is not like specifically identifiable for a particular class. So we have these two common situations where we have a whole bunch of expenses and income that are sitting on either an admin overhead, a reclass type of class, and then a non-specified. So to fix this, you would have to go into each transaction and manually divide this across multiple classes. So for example, if this particular depreciation expense, if I wanted to hit both the new construction or the remodel class, I would have to open the transaction. I would have to modify the transaction. Okay, open it up, modify it, and actually do a manual split inside of the journal entry itself. Okay, that's going to take a very long time to do transaction by transaction. Some people do that. Like some people, that's essentially what they do. So they'll come in here and divide this in two. So divide by 2 or something like that, and then they'll come in and split it. Okay, and let's put it here to the depreciation expense, and then put it on half to class A and half to class B. Okay, so that's one way of doing it, going to each transaction and doing it manually. Now, the challenge is sometimes it's not a perfect math, so you'll be off by a couple of cents. And we as programmers building RightTool, we're running into a similar situation, which is, okay, what decisions do we make when we're off by a cent and that sort of thing? So this is what you have now. If you don't have RightTool, this is what you have now. You go into an original transaction and you split it, divided by half, by 3, 60-40, 20-20, 60, whatever split you do in your classes based on how you run your business. So that's option number 1. Option number 2 is going at the end of the period. So for example, we'll take a look at the P&L by class one more time. So let's do P&L by class, and we'll do this year and click on Run Report. So we'll go in there and do a journal entry where maybe in a journal entry, so not splitting each transaction. That was a good, that 44,000 was a simple example because it was a single transaction. But when you have a whole bunch of transactions in here, what are you going to do? You're going to go into each of these transactions and split it. That's going to take you forever. So the solution is to do one journal entry where you take, let me pull up P&L by class again. Sorry. Let's do P&L by class. So we take a single journal entry. So for example, for this 17-15, and let's say I wanted to do a 60-40 split, I would go and open maybe a journal entry in a new tab, and I would do this crazy thing, which again, that's what people are doing now. We do this crazy thing, and we're going to split this off so it's easier to read. So I know it's kind of boring to see like the old way of doing it. It's just, I have a feeling that a whole bunch of people just don't do this type of work, and it's hard to sort of understand what the purpose of it is until you actually do one. Like you actually have to go through like that pain of going through it. So you would come in here and go to the fuel account, and then you would remove 17-15, and then we'll put it back in the same fuel account because essentially we're redistributing across multiple classes. That's what we're doing, right? So we're gonna come in here. Let's say we're gonna do we're gonna go three classes here. So and then we'll come in here and let's say it's 20, 20, 60. So I divide this by or multiply times 0.2, right? And then come in here and it's the same number. So I keep come here and then this would be 1715 times 0.60. And then I would come in here and
Well, you just did 0.60, not times 60.
yep,
Or
yes. Yeah, I did plus. So 7 times 0.60. Okay. And then I would come in here and go from zero class, right? So from a blank class, and then put it across the classes where they're supposed to go. Okay. So that's option number 2, still available. Sometimes you get fancy, you go into Excel and you kind of do this stuff in Excel, but you still have to come in here and build the journal entry. So now that we pretty much understand what the problem is, I think it'll be easier to reframe what the proposed solution here with RightTool is. So solution number 1, you're going to run a P&L by class or a P&L by location. And these adjustments that you need to make are staring you at the face. But we're going to turn on this feature. We're going to go into the settings menu on RightTool. We're going to go into Experiments Pro, and it's called Reallocate in P&L. So again, it's under Experiments Pro, still a beta. We're going to improve this. I promise you, your feedback's going to be incredible to make this feature really, really powerful. So Reallocate, and then the other one under Batch Pro, we're also going to turn on Copy Excel to Transactions because there's really 2 features. The first feature is to figure out how to reallocate, and the second feature is to import the reallocation. So I kind of understand that there's essentially 2 things happening at the same time. So example number 1, I want to move my expenses from not specified and maybe split 50-50 across 2 active classes. So I'm going to click on reallocate and it's going to get a pop-up. Now in this pop-up, I have a couple of components I want you to look at. So component number 1 is this drop-down menu. This is where you choose the source class or location, depending on whether you're looking at a P&L by class or location, the source that you're bringing the information from. So if I click on new construction, I want to grab the stuff from new construction and put it in other classes. If I pick remodel, I want to grab it from remodel and put it in other classes. If I want to pick overhead, I want to grab from remodel head and spread across multiple classes. But we're going to grab not specified, and not specified means it's missing a class. And essentially, there's 2 line items here. And these numbers are based on what's in the P&L, and it's based on whether the P&L's class, cash or accrual. So you have to make sure that you pick the right version. So if you wanted to do this in accrual, I have to go back to the report, run accrual, run report, and run the reallocate again. And I just kind of noticed that there was a unapplied cash payment that reminded me that was a cash or accrual. So first thing that I'm thinking on the fly here, Mark, we should probably indicate cash or accrual here in this screen, just because like at that particular moment, I even forgot, that we were cash or accrual. So I think it would be useful to put in parentheses cash or accrual. That way we know just in case we miss it. And again, we want you to go into chat and give me your feedback in terms of, okay, is that useful? Is that not useful? That sort of thing. Or what do you use usually, cash or accrual? That would be useful too, like for us to know what's the most common way that you would use it, like it's a cash or accrual. Okay, so we pick not specified, we're under accrual, and then we're going to go into next. So now we know that we're going to take that $44,000 and we're going to split across multiple classes. By default, you're going to see all of your active classes here. Okay, so all the classes are showing here. And then you get to pick what percentage you're going to use. So you can manually come in here and just do, look, 50-50. Just make it very simple. You can type your percentages there. Of course, whatever methodology you use would be unique to your business. You can also, and we're working on more options, but right now we're showing the total income, the total sales for that particular class in the report. So maybe you want to do a proportional split based on sales. And I know some people have told me, I want to do it based on payroll. I want to do it based on cost of goods sold. I want to do it based on gross income. I want to do it based on net income. Give us that feedback in terms of, like, if you do a proportional reallocation, do you do something else that's not sales? In my history, I use sales, but is there something else? So right now we're just making it very simple, and we're just going to do it by general categories here. So I'm just going to start with total income because that's the one that's functional now. And then down here at the bottom, we have a couple of buttons. We have split evenly and split proportionally. So split evenly, what it will do is as many classes are being shown on the screen, it's going to divide it. So in this case, will be a third for each class. If I remove one of the classes and then I click on split evenly, then it's going to bring it back to 50-50 because it's based on the number of classes that you're actually seeing on the screen. Now I'm going to reset here, and then I'm going to click on split proportionally. So split proportionally would actually take the total sales for that class divided by the entire sales across all the classes, and then it'll figure out what the percentage for you to do here. I know most people do this manual calculation in Excel. And if you're going to be doing it based on like employee hours or something like that, you're going to have to like figure this out in a separate report and then figure out what the percentage is and then manually enter the percentages in here. Like if you're in a 40-60 split, look, I'm just typing it in there. So if you can't get the information from the P&L and you have to use some other external source, then you manually put the percentages in there. And you can do up to 3 decimal points. That's how we have it set up for now. Okay, so the next step is you're going to get 2 options. One, you can click on Export Journal to CSV. And we're giving you that option because I know some people will come in here and then go into this journal entry and do some other additional magical stuff to it, right? So like you want to add some additional notes or change something or review prior to making the adjustment or print this as part of your work file, whatever it is. I don't, whatever situation you have a CSV that you can do with it, whatever you want. But we've also done something really interesting is we automatically added notes for you. So what we did was on the first line, we put reallocated and we put the percentages. We allocated 42% to new construction and 57% to remodel for the period of January through December. Okay. And then on the second line, it says reallocated from not specified at 42%. And the third line says reallocated from not specified at 57%. So this is you are gonna give us a feedback in terms of like what kind of notes you would like to see in here. Is this good enough? This is what we come up with at the moment. I'm building this tool based on how I would want this to work. This is going to be such a complex tool from the perspective of like how many tentacles this can have in terms of how people. Okay. So there's the spreadsheet. So you can save the spreadsheet, you can print it, or you can use your favorite import software. So if you like using Sassant or Transaction Pro Importer or a new journal entry feature built into QBO that's about to come out this summer, you can use that. So this spreadsheet could be used for any purpose. But of course, if you're using RightTool Pro, might as well use our own built-in journal entry feature. So instead of exporting to journal, we're going to do copy to clipboard. Okay. So when you click on copy to clipboard, it's going to copy the journal entry into the clipboard so you can paste it. It will open a journal entry in a new tab for you. That way it's just sort of prompting the next step for you. And as long as you have the paste Excel feature turned on, there's a little the little icon there. I could turn that on, and because it's already on the clipboard, then I could just simply paste my journal entry in here, click on paste. I get a preview of what the journal entry looks like. Again, identical to that CSV export. And then I'm going to click on paste into QuickBooks. It does the journal entry for me. I have an opportunity to change, whatever date range this is. So if I want to take a look at, just go back for a second here. This was this year. Okay, that's good enough. So I can use today's date. Then I'm going to click on save or save and close. Go back into my P&L, click on refresh, and then notice that my depreciation expense of $44,000 has now been automatically redistributed with those percentages across those two classes. Okay, so that was pretty simple. That was a single journal entry, a single expense. What if it's more complex? Like I literally need to bring all of these expenses across multiple classes. So let's do that. So I'm going to show you a more complex version of this. So we're going to click on reallocate, and we'll click on that. And then we're going to go, instead of not specified, we're going to bring stuff from overhead. So there's a whole bunch of other expense categories. What's cool about this is I can say, you know what? only grab my expenses, and then I'll only focus on my expenses, or only grab my the COGS, or only grab all or income, right? So I get to pretty much choose which group of categories I want to only reallocate, because I know some people only reallocate expenses and then go back to income later on in the future and reclassify those invoices automatically to the right class or location. So you can choose which of the grouping to focus on, and then you can just click on select all, and then we'll click on next. So now it's telling me, okay, how would you want to reallocate this? So this screen looks identical. So I can do a split proportionally, or I can do split evenly, or whatever it is. Let's just do split evenly, and then just kind of split them across the board, third, third, and third. And we're working on getting a decimals here too. So it'll be, so once we get the decimals in, it will kind of look like this. So we only did decimals for the proportionally and not the evenly, but that was our fault.
Yes. Up top 33.33.
Yeah. 33.33. Perfect. Okay. And then there's and that's I did on purpose. So you can see down here on the bottom. There's a total percent. Okay. Letting you know that you have to be at 100. Now, do we get an error if okay, so we don't get an error if we're at 100, if we're not at 100, which is pretty interesting. So
I think we wanted it to be that way. You had to have at least something, but you can have less than 100 in case you don't want to allocate everything.
That's interesting too. Okay, so we're not erroring it out if it's not 100, but of course we want to see that 100% there. I mean, that's, we advise that you look at the 100% there. Okay, so then we'll go copy your clipboard, click OK. So we're going to see a much bigger, much more complex journal entry here. So let's go ahead and paste this, and let's click on paste. And now we have a much bigger, a much larger journal entry. When I click on paste into QuickBooks, and again, the bigger the journal entry, the more you need to be patient, right, on this. Now, I see a comment here that says you should leave something in overhead. So like Cindy is saying, hey, you don't have to reallocate the whole thing. You should leave something in overhead. So I guess that's what this would be for. So that's a great point, Cindy. So if you wanted to maybe do, let's say, 40% to new construction, 40% to remodel, I'm not sure if what we should do is just put 20 in overhead or just leave it blank. What are your thoughts about that, Mark, in terms of logic? I guess it'll work either way, correct?
Should work either way.
Yeah, it should work either way. So if you wanted to leave, so for now, what we're thinking is, if you want to leave something in overhead, you want to leave 20% in overhead, just leave it blank. But I know that if you put 20, it'll like take the whole amount and then put the 20% back into overhead, which again, it could be also interesting for audit trail to kind of see what the whole amount that you're reallocating and the fact that you're leaving 20% back into overhead. So that could be possible too. So if you were going to do something like that, then we'll copy that to clipboard. We'll go back into this journal entry here and replace the journal entry with the new amount. So let me X out and not save. And then we'll go back to the journal entry again. And in this particular situation, we're actually leaving 20% in overhead, okay, based on Cindy's comment. Again, maybe 10% or whatever. So if we paste here, okay, we actually see that the entire amount comes out of overhead, and then 20% goes back into overhead. So that you get a kind of a nicer audit trail type of thing in there. So we'll go to paste into QuickBooks. There's my journal entry. Okay, we're still bringing in some zero values. We're gonna have to think about if we want to bring zero values or not. I would love to know your opinion on that. Like, should we, if there's an expense line that's zero, should we bring a zero value or just leave the zeros out? I mean, in RightTool, we can clear the zero values anyway. We have ability to clean that up anyway. So except for the first one.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. So there's my journal entry, and then these things should be balanced now. So then I can click on save and close, and I can go back into my profit and loss now. Oh, by the way, Mark, on the new tab for the journal entry, we should leave the tag in the parameter on the URL, so it closes automatically if I do a save and close.
Okay.
You know how we do with drill down? Yeah. That way we just kind of go back into the screen. So now I can X out of this screen here, I can click on run report, and then essentially we left 20% on overhead in this specific situation. So we left 20% in there, and that's how we did it. So so that could have been blanked out if I didn't leave the overhead in there. Okay, so let's do another example, and let's go with locations. And before I do that, let me take a break for a second. And what comments are you seeing, Mark? Things that we could discuss here publicly?
Let's see here. So one of the big things that I'm seeing a lot is, oh, will we be able to do this with locations?
Right.
Yes, we have locations working slash it's going to be a little bit more effective with tonight's update. But yes, you can do it by class location, and eventually we will be doing it by customer. It's just going to take us a slight bit longer, maybe like a couple of days to get the customer in there. So just be aware. That's kind of one of the big things. People were saying no zeros would be better is a pretty big thing. Let's see here.
So we would so if we could probably add a setting in the next page that says remove zero, like don't export zero value lines or something like that. I guess we could do that.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to click on reallocate. So I'm going to do classes now. I mean, locations now. So I'm going to do reallocate, and we're going to grab from not specified. Okay. And we're going to go to next. And then we have, different sales for different locations. I'm just going to do split proportionally. So it does the calculation for me. Okay. Then I'm going to go to copy to clipboard, click OK. New tab opens up with my journal entry screen. And then we're going to click on the paste feature. We're going to paste this in here. And again, at the same time, we could also, Mark, we could have the remove zero lines in here too. Okay. I mean, in either way, we have the tools to remove the zero lines later on. So it's not a really huge problem. But I guess it would be interesting, probably maybe not as important here because we already have to remove the clear zero lines. But on the export of the original CSV, maybe we can have a version of it where it doesn't export the zero lines. Okay, so there's my big journal entry. I'm going to click on paste into QuickBooks. Now, I'll always notice that the very first one, when we do not specified, it's just missing the location. That means it's grabbing it out of that location and putting it back into each specific location. So I'm going to click on save and close. And we're probably going to add something to a tracker to this. So when we hit save and close, this closes automatically and we get back into our P&L again. Okay. So now I'm going to X out of that, and then I'm going to click on run report. And then before I click run report, we're expecting everything in this not specified column to basically be zero out. So I'm going to click on run report, and boom, everything is now zero out. And then because QuickBooks has awesome tools, I can come in here and do columns non-zero, click on run report, and that will get rid of that. And then now I finally have all of my expenses, in this case by location, reallocated 100%. So we have classes and locations, and we can't combine them. Like you have to do each one separately. So you can do classes in one pass, locations in one pass, that sort of thing. We can't cross-pollinate that sort of thing because we're doing it based on the observable report that's in front of us. We're not looking into any specific transactions or filtering by a particular customer job or whatever. We can do that. Now, if QuickBooks allows you to do any sort of filtering, so if you could do a filtering in QuickBooks, so if you want to filter this, for a particular employee or for a particular, let's see here, Greg Schneider. Okay, maybe there's no data here, but if you filter this for maybe a particular customer, so let's just grab a customer here. If I filter this for a particular customer, let's do all dates. See, so if I do filter, and essentially what I want to spread is for that specific customer, those expenses by classes or by locations, I can do that. What I do recommend is, if I click on reallocate, do all classes show? Okay, all classes still show. So I guess that could work. And we haven't even thought about that use case where you will filter something in the report. But as long as you're taking the numbers are in the report, that's what's going to do? Remember, this is a journal entry creation process. This is nothing fancy. This is just calculating the journal entry for you. It's really all it is. Okay, any questions on this? Now, I wanna show you something that's a bit more complex. And go ahead and Mark, tell me if there's any questions here. I'm gonna switch to another company file that's kind of a hot mess. It has a lot of classes and sublocations, has sublocations. So I want to show you the concept of like dealing with sublocations and subclasses because we've kind of gave that some thought and we're starting to think about like what impact this is going to have to sublocations, subclasses, parent locations, parent classes. Okay. So this feature is going to be available this afternoon, literally. Like I'm actually working on the beta that's going to be published. We're getting live feedback from you guys. So if we missed a mark if we missed the mark anywhere, no pun intended. If Mark missed the mark anywhere, no pun intended, we'll fix it really quick prior to doing that. So let's do a profit and loss, and let's do let's do this year. Okay, so we're gonna do something a little bit more complex. We're gonna do this by classes. Okay, and I have all sorts of like subclasses, sublocations here. So it's going to be a much more complex situation. Okay, so I'm going to go into reallocate, and I'm going to show you a different concept here. So I have accounts here that some of them have parent classes, and what we did is anything that has a parent and a sub, we highlighted in bold the parent, just in case maybe you don't want to touch the parent transactions, maybe you don't want to touch those. So you can actually remove that 100% and say, okay, I don't want to touch that one at all. So that's actually an option that you have. So you can particularly choose not to bring a particular set of accounts. So you can pick which accounts essentially you want to bring over. I don't want to bring parent accounts. I only want to bring payroll. I only want to bring advertising. That's going to be up to you 100%. And the next thing here is when it goes time to redistribute, let's say I want to redistribute to everything except a parent class. So I have a parent class here, you see it, and you can see the ones that have the bold. Those are the ones that have a parent sub-parent relationship, a parent sub-account relationship. So I can get rid of all the parent classes. There's a little button here that says remove parents. So I'm going to click on remove parents. Whoops. I X'd out a mistake, sorry. So I'm going to click on remove parents, and I'll remove the parents from the redistribution list. And then after I remove the parents, then at that point, I can split evenly or I can split proportionally. So that's an option too. And also let me hit reset. If I wanted to remove anything that had a 0, so in this case, it doesn't seem like anything has a running 0, but if I want to remove anything that has a 0, I can remove the 0 ones too. So that's another option that you have. Yeah. Okay. So again, I was in my reallocate tool, and I clicked on remove parents. So remove all the parent accounts, split evenly or proportionally, whatever happens to be. Open up in a new in a journal entry. Come paste that in here. Paste. And essentially the point is it can do subclasses, sublocations as well. It's essentially what we're illustrating here. So it's going to be a much longer journal entry. So it's going to take a little bit longer. So just wait a minute or so. So anytime you see a very long journal entry, just give it a minute because it's hard to interact with the browser. We can't give you an hourglass, but it's like that. Just give it a minute for everything to come in. Look at this big, humongous journal entry that has, how many lines are in here? 300, 400 lines of journal entries. And, we did that so fast. Click on save and close. Go back into my profit and loss. X out of this. Run report. And now under my not specified, so we had some negatives in this particular company file that we're still trying to figure out. So the negatives actually went deeper into negatives. That's something that we're working through, but it works 100%. It's just that we have a bunch of junk in a data file. So the first example was more illustrative, but you could always go back and take a look at that journal entry. So because we know it's going to be rare, but we're going to be dealing with people with negative results in this. And then we're going to have to now add some logic to make sure that whatever was a debit is supposed to be a credit, that sort of thing. We're working on that. And as you guys beta test it, that's going to be something that, that we'll be fixing along the way.
Yeah. And just to be clear for people on the call, this will be fixed tomorrow. It's a amazingly dumb oversight on my part, and I do apologize. If you have the pop-up showing up and then nothing is popping up afterwards, it's probably because you don't have location and classes in your file. That will be fixed tomorrow. I
Right.
apologize.
Right.
I can't believe I did not test that beforehand. That's in terrible oversight on my part. But that will be fixed in version 20.2.
Okay. Yeah. So there is kind of a beta out now that we published last night, but it's still has some bugs. We're still working through the bugs. We're still working through the bugs this morning, and right now the version that I'm using requires class and location both to be turned on. So it kind of like gets frozen if if you don't have both turned on. And we're not saying to go turn them on. It's just one piece of logic that we have to fix. Again, we try to release this fairly quick after the March 15th deadline, but not so deep into the April deadline, because this is something that we have been thinking about for a couple of months already, but we kind of didn't know how to execute. And then we started just playing with it, and we have a new team member that helped quite a bit to take some load of Mark's plate, and we were able to. I think right now it's probably 90% of where it's supposed to be, but I think that by the end of this week, it's going to work. This is going to work
Right.
it's going to work really nicely. And
I
we want
think
your
that the
feedback.
way I would describe it is right now, I would say 90% of the way there is pretty good, but the 10% that's not there annoys the heck out of me. And
Right,
then by the end of this week, it'll be 99% there, but then people probably have extra things they'll want, and that's perfectly understandable. Uh,
right. So somebody is saying, what about so what about the period? So again, we are doing this based on whatever period you're looking at. So if the report you're running is last year, it's going to grab the numbers for last year. If the report you're running to is last month, it's going to grab last month. It's going to happen based on the report you're looking at. We cannot automate this so it automatically does it at the end of the month, because the RightTool doesn't automate stuff that's not happening in front of you. So you still have to press a couple of buttons. It only takes minutes. To automate this type of stuff, it needs to be an API tool, and we're not there yet. That would be an entirely different thing. Now, somebody's asking, what if the report has monthly columns instead of class or locations? Well, remember, a journal entry only has one date, so there's no way to like shift stuff from like one month to the other. So this tool wouldn't be relevant for monthly columns. It's only relevant for uh, customers, locations, sorry, for locations, classes, phase one. Eventually, maybe in a couple of weeks, we'll get customers. And then if there's enough people saying, I want to do it by vendor, we'll do it by vendor. But vendor is kind of a weird one. So I don't even know a use case
I
for that.
mean, technically speaking, when we do stuff for customers, I guess theoretically it would work for vendors just as well, just because of the way that customers and vendors
Right,
work
right. Because
with journal
a
entry.
P&L by vendor is such a strange concept, because it's not, there's no income by vendor. But I mean, if somebody gives us a use case, and then we'll add it after we get customers done.
Mm, do you have an answer for that question from Cindy,
Cindy,
Hector?
okay. So Cindy's asking, what if I do one reallocation based on quarter, forget, and then do another allocation year to date? So, Cindy, the allocation is going to have a single date on that journal entry. So if you do one for quarter one, one for quarter two, you forget quarter three, and then you do one for year end. That year end is going to adjust both quarter three and four, because it's the report you're looking at. It's just when you run the P&L by for quarter three, it's not going to be allocated. So you have to run it for the whole year for it to work. So if you want to do this by month or by quarter, then do it by month or by quarter prior to doing the year, right? So it really depends on your situation.
Yeah. We tried to give it as much flexibility as we could for this without making it so absurdly complicated
Right.
that
Right.
it
Right.
defeats the
Now,
point.
Elizabeth's asking an interesting question. Any item interaction here? So obviously the answer is no, because journal entries don't do items. Elizabeth, I actually would love to know the use case in which you want to redistribute things across items instead of across accounts. So I would love that, because we technically could with a bill, right? We have the import in the new bills, and we could build something like this, but I would need to understand the use case to see where I'm getting the information from. So Cindy, just go. I mean, Elizabeth, please type it in the chat, or I could bring you up. And if it's easier for you to tell us verbally. Okay. Brenda says, would it not just work if you filter for the month you want instead of doing it annually, depending on how important it is for you to do by month? Yeah. So it doesn't have to be annually. It could be, you could do this in any period. And then just when you run the report for that period, that's the one that's going to show the zeros in that class or location. Okay. Let's see. Brenda's asking a question. Are these meetings on the same days of the month each month? So Brenda, we used to do monthly meetings for RightTool. Now we're moving to every 2 months, because the new feature acceleration process, it's shrinking. Like we're actually doing a lot more removing tools than adding tools at this point, because QuickBooks is actually catching up and is, let's call it, inspired by some of the things that we're doing. So like we're actually removing some of those things. So the next one's going to be actually in April, and then it's going to go into a 2-month cadence. So Brenda, thank you for the question on that. Michelle says, how about similar feature that splits an amount proportionally across multiple periods? Amortizing prepaid expenses. Okay, so that request, Michelle, would be to import multiple journal entries. I guess that's what the request is. And remember, this is all within the context that we do that these are single journal entry imports. Okay. We would have to give some thought in terms of what we can do with that. The good news is, and I'm going to give you a quick preview on this. Now, a lot of you are going to be excited, and a lot of you are going to want to strangle me across the Zoom call because I'm showing you something that you don't have access to. So you see right here under the gear menu and under import data, QuickBooks is actually in the process of bringing a feature called journal entry import. Okay. Now that's going to be cool once it's fully functional right there, journal entry import. Then we could probably remove our, paste right tool. Although I think people like the paste feature, but this journal entry import feature is actually pretty cool. You can grab a CSV file like the one that I was just working on. So let me just grab the CSV file here, click on next, and I can map it. Okay, I can map the journal entry. You might have to do a couple of things to that, and then you can import. It's actually pretty interesting. So this tool is going to be released probably summer-ish of 2024. They released it to, I think, to only like 5% of QBO users. I've actually requested that they release it to me in my file. They had to force release it because I'm beta testing and I'm giving them feedback. Anyway, so the new journal entry feature might actually allows you to import multiple journal entries, like multiple at the same time. So maybe if we actually create a like an amortization type of tool, we could build a journal entry for you. We have to give that some thought. That's going to take a while. But who gave that comment? Who was that? Michelle. So Michelle, yeah, it's not going to be impossible. It's just that we don't have built-in tools right now to bring multiple journal entries with multiple lines at the same time. RightTool can only bring in a single journal entry. But once this feature is mainstream, now that everybody's going to be able to import journal entries with QBO, and that's going to be what I think is what the last thing they told me is across multiple versions. So it's going to be across everything. Canada has this, and the UK has this, and I think it works across all editions. So it's not advanced only. So once that feature is completely out and people are using it, I'm sure you guys are going to be telling me, hey, now that I can import journals, I wish I had a tool that can build a journal this way, that way, or whatever. So yeah, amortization tables, that sort of stuff. Yeah, we could probably work with something like that. Okay. Somebody says we want items in journal entries. Okay, that's Elizabeth. Yeah, I know, but that's not gonna happen. So Elizabeth, did you get a chance to did she get a chance to tell us? Okay, here's the case. So case study example, nonprofit organization has events with ticket sales, concerts, as well as instruction, music lessons. We allocate differently for them. They are tracked as items in sales receipts. So you want to reallocate, and Elizabeth, you're trying to reallocate across classes, I assume. Is that what you're trying to do? Sales across classes without splitting the actual sales receipt. So this would kind of look something like this. Okay, so let's see if this use case. So let's say, for example, we're selling 60 of this item. Okay, and it's going into maybe like an overhead class or something, or I'm gonna call one reclass. Okay, and then essentially what you want, I think, is when I run my report of sales by item for this date. So let me run that report here. So let's do sales. I think it's sales by product or service. So sales by product or service summary, and I do today's date. Okay, so I have 60 items sold. I assume that if I run a detailed report of sorts, I want to know like items per class or something like that. I think that's what Elizabeth is telling me. It's like how would I reallocate items or something like that. So if I went to group this by class or something like that, we don't have it split by class. So option number one is to go to the original sales receipt and split the item sale itself. Like so come in here and type item, let's say 3 times, and then do 30, 20, and 10, and then come in here and choose let's say let's do commercial, wholesale, and then the last one would be, let's say it's going to be this one called subclass 3.1. Click on save, and then go into this report and click on run report. Go into the details, and if I wanted to see that redistributed by in this case by class, that's what I think Elizabeth wants. It wants to run some sort of report that shows me item sales by class, but doesn't want to go into the original sales receipt and go across and do a whole bunch. So what I'm thinking is, and if we could build something like that, I just got to figure out where we would get the information from originally, is we would create the split for you in the transaction itself, or we would maybe create a spreadsheet that takes an amount, a bunch of like an item, an amount, and a bunch of classes, and creates a spreadsheet for you. And then once we're able to import into sales receipts, which in my particular version I can't, but in some of the newer editions of the sales receipt you could. Once we can copy and paste in here, we can do something like that. So Elizabeth, is that kind of what you're looking for? I just want to make sure I understand the use case so we can think about that. So in the transaction level. So I wonder, is it okay? Elizabeth is gonna email me an example. So Elizabeth, my question to you is: do you want to split it within the original transaction, or do you want to create a separate transaction to split a whole period of transactions? Like, so you want to split inside, or do you want to have multiple? Because we could maybe there's a possibility we could do something interesting with this. Okay, a whole period. Okay, email me that, and we'll look into that. I mean, it's not impossible, but we got to get all the new sales receipts screen to be across all QuickBooks files so we can use the import feature.
Or I need to just add the import feature to the old
ones. Yeah, that's true. Do we have one with? You said we have one with it.
Literally, RightTool's very own books have the sales receipt or import.
Okay, I'll switch to that really quick.
And yes, Tiffany, we are aware that for whatever reason, Canada does have the journal entry import, but for whatever reason, the United States has been behind on that.
Well, I went to the way I approach people. It's like, hey, you don't have to work really hard at developing this thing. Just like talk to your neighbors in the north and the neighbors in across the pond and see, what do they have. Just copy that and bring it to the U.S. But that was built with other things in mind, like multi-currency and value-added tax. So in the U.S., that's not as common. So it's going to work slightly different. So let me open a sales receipt for a second. So if we were doing some sort of reallocation here, and I'm going to turn on um, the copy Excel.
Oh, it might be an experiment. Maybe it's not. I don't know.
For the sales receipt. No, it shouldn't be.
Uh, yeah, maybe it's not. Yeah, maybe I changed it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So mine is not showing. But it was interesting because we saw some other people showing. But on this new sales receipt, the one that looks like this,
Annoying.
what is it in here?
Oh no, that's a different thing, but that is also annoying. But that's a
Yeah.
separate issue.
Yeah, so it's not showing here. It's not showing here, but we are gonna develop on this new one. We're gonna bring it maybe on the next update. We'll take a look at that. But we can import. We can actually import from spreadsheets into sales receipts, into the newer sales receipt. So if you can build a spreadsheet, Elizabeth, you can do one generic sales receipt and split it. Like you will do a negative. Like you would grab one item, right, and do, let's say, negative 20 or something like that. Right? You would do something like this. So you do negative 20, and then you would grab the same item and, let's say, split across, let's say, 15 and 5 or something like that. And we could split an item across multiple classes. So like this can be automated. We haven't thought about that, but this could be automated. We could automate the item element. Again, Elizabeth, email me that and we'll see that. I think it's a fascinating problem, actually. I think it's pretty interesting, but it shouldn't be too difficult to build something like this. We're going to be focusing on the journal entry and the class allocations and customer jobs first, because that's the biggest thing. And then we'll look into that one. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions, Mark, that we missed, or could we end the webinar? You guys tell us, give us suggestions. What do you want to see on this feature? What do you run into? Like, what do you base that out of? Like, we use income as the example. Somebody said number of full-time employees or something like that. I wonder where we would get that information from.
Yeah. Marnie asked about split, or maybe not asked, but kind of gave an example of why she would want to split by period, which is an interesting idea. Although you could just do it one time and then you could.
We're talking about amortizing, correct? I mean, I just want to make sure we get the right terminology, Marnie. When you say split by period, you're talking about amortizing, right? We're amortizing an accrual, correct? I want to make sure that I understand, because there's no such thing as adjusting periods in a single journal entry. You need multiple journal entry. Let's see this one. Jessica says, I just split specified expense categories this way quarterly. So it looks like your current feature will do that beautifully. The only improvement I would be if I would remember the percentages I used last time. Okay, that's a good. So that's a good example. So I think what she's saying is, okay, the only challenge I have with this, Jessica, is what if just kind of thinking out loud here. What if you go across multiple QuickBooks files, and like, okay, fine, I went in here and I did a specific set of let me just grab them here, and let me just do a proportional split evenly or something like that. So you want to remember these percentages you used last time. Okay, that's interesting. I don't know what solution you would have for that, Mark. Like maybe like save a profile, but the thing is that it's gonna be per company file. So that's
per company file. Plus, if you put X's in and all that stuff, it kind of gets a little bit complicated. I'll
Yeah.
think about what I can do with that, but I don't know.
What if we allow this screen to be printed or something like that? Um, what if we can insert, could we do like some sort of like print, like easy print on this page so people can have that saved somewhere? Um, but the problem with saving a template, and that's a good call to that. Saving a template works really well when you only have one QuickBooks file and that's it. But then when you go across multiple QuickBooks files, it's more complicated because it's hard to explain. But
I mean, some people have an interesting point. I mean, having some kind of like spreadsheet, maybe like a button where at the top or something where it's like export template, and then we could use that to import the percentages or something like that. So what it would be is like if go to the reallocate feature and then go to like the second screen of it, then you would inside of there would be some kind of button that says, okay, class XYZ, there would be a button at the top. It says export template, and it would literally just remember everything about what this page looks like except for the totals, and then you
okay,
could just import it in there.
okay. So you
I
so
could,
so exporting the class or location names with the percentages next to it, and then
yeah, like as a CSV basically.
be able to import that. Okay, so okay,
I mean,
that's elegant.
I'll put it in the documents. I mean, we'll see how difficult that ends up being.
Yeah, yeah. But that'll happen in the back end.
Yeah.
Now,
Uh,
let's see what else we have here. So yeah, remembering the percentages. Yeah, that's really good. So saving a template, I guess that's probably the best thing we could do that. Could you link the pop-up to the last record reallocation entry to show the percentages used? So to actually save it in memory somehow?
uh, I mean, saving it in memory is weirdly difficult. I mean, the only problem, I wouldn't mind saving it in memory in a very specific way if it wasn't for the fact that QuickBooks already kind of uses a lion's share of like the local storage area, which is why sometimes when you go to the login, it just does the little circle and it never actually logs you in until you clear your cache and cookies, like because of the fact that they use so much local storage sometimes.
Right, right,
So I try not to do that too
right.
much.
It's not sustainable. It's gonna get cleared by itself, that sort of thing.
Yeah, which is where that kind of comes into play. It's like a CSV export where somebody can keep it on their own computer. This might be a little bit easier, or
Yeah.
it might be a little bit more likely to not break your QuickBooks.
Yeah, and it solves the print problem because then you just print from the CSV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Kate's asking what's the little back arrow in the top. That's just so if you want to go back to
That's
selecting.
that's the back button.
Yeah, so that will make it so you can select the different classes again if you wanted to,
Yeah.
or the amounts. Yeah.
It's just a back button.
Can
Okay.
you make that percentage column as pastable?
Ooh. Ooh, the percentage column pastable.
Oh God, the way that Hector said "ooh" when you said that, Tiffany, makes me slightly upset that you suggested it, but that's okay. I
Well, but
appreciate it anyway.
these fields are not set up in a way that we can just allow the browser to paste into it. Like you still have to build a weird thing.
Yeah,
But you know what? You know what? No, that the import solves the problem. If you think
yeah.
about it, if you import solves the problem, because if you essentially if you have this stuff in Excel, you can just import that CSV in there. Actually, Mark, if you if you do a if you export this template into CSV and import it, couldn't you not have could it could it work where you don't have to select the CSV file? You can just paste while it's bringing it in there as well. Essentially, it's the same mechanic, right? Loading a CSV file and loading the clipboard is the same thing anyway, isn't it?
There's like a minor difference, but for the most part, yes.
Okay, all right. I think the template idea is good.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
I think the template idea is good. Okay, all right, perfect. So yeah, we don't.
We made a massive mistake before this webinar, though.
What is it?
We did not make slides.
Yeah, we didn't make slides. There's no
Um,
slides. That's what I'm saying. There's no slides. There's no need for slides. There's a video live in YouTube now. If you actually go to YouTube and go into the Right Tool channel, and this is very important for you to make sure that you're subscribed to the Right Tool channel. We got a video that shows the mechanics, a 7-minute video that shows the mechanics, and so that's gonna be in there. Let me just make sure you can see my screen. Okay. So you can the video's right there on YouTube. All right, last thing, I'm gonna let you guys go. It's I just want to limit it to 1 hour. I want to ask you for a personal favor. We still got 200 people in the chat now. Please go into abc.accountinghigh.com, abc.accountinghigh.com, and click on cast your votes and cast your vote for your favorite apps. Make sure that you cast your vote for Right Tool and the unofficial QuickBooks Accountant podcast that I'm involved with and obviously everybody else that every other tools that you like quite a bit. So please go to abc.accountinghigh.com. You have to have a LinkedIn profile to log in. You log into your LinkedIn profile and vote for your favorite app. Give us a shout out. I would love to win this thing. Just for bragging rights, I guess. Okay. All right. So thanks a lot. I appreciate everybody. The feedback's really good. We're going to put all the feedback into practice. Give us a couple of days to update Right Tool for it to have all the things that you asked us to add, and we should be good to go. Looking forward to see how much time this saves you. Thank you,
yeah.
everybody. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, everybody.